Hi guys. Hi. Hi, welcome to the live stream. In this session, this is the second session of absorption by roots. This is the second session of absorption by roots in which we are going to hello. Okay, so this is the second session of absorption by roots in which we are going to finish off the long distance transport part. In the previous session, we dealt with the short distance transport part. Okay, so let's get going. So basically, whenever we talk about plant transport or any transport else, we learn about the short distance transport and we learn about the long distance transport. Right now, since we have done the short distance transport in the previous session, now in this session let's start off with the long distance transport. So plant transport, again, as I said, it's a short distance transport and long distance transport. There are two transports. Now in the previous session we have done the short distance transport. Now we are going to deal with the long distance transport. Now for long distance transport, we have to know few basic things, like from where to where we are going, how we are going, and what the thing that is going. Right, so for again the triangle of WH words that we dealt with. So basically what we are going to know, so again the triangle of WH words that we are supposed to know, that is what is going, like whether it's food or water that is supposed to go, where it is going, and how it is going. Right, so let's study. So for long distance transport, we need land where a plant can grow, and in that land we will have a plant. We have a beautiful small plant, or it may be a huge enormous tree, whatever it is. Now the long distance transport can be of two things. It can be the water or it can be the food. Now water is transported via xylem, as you all know. So what is xylem? So basically xylem is your conduction tissue that is found in the plant body. Now conduction tissue in the plant body are of two types. Those are xylem and phloem. So xylem is concerned with the water transport and phloem is concerned with the food transport that takes place. Right? Now one thing, this xylem and phloem both are a part of complex plant tissue. So all these things we have dealt with in class 9 in our previous class. Right? So now we will deal with the idea of the directionality of both transport. The water transport is unidirectional in nature. That means the water transport always takes place from the roots to the leaves. So this is only unidirectional. So this is a very important point that you should be knowing. Right, but food transport is bidirectional. But why bidirectional? You may say that the food is being prepared in the leaves, and then after getting prepared in the leaves, the food is coming down through the stem and into the roots or into the different parts of the body. So food transport is also unidirectional. You may say that, but I would rather argue saying that so food transport is bidirectional in nature. Why it is bidirectional in nature? Suppose in terms of winter, when the tree leaves are covered with all your snow and all, so those leaves cannot do photosynthesis, or the green parts which are covered with snow cannot do photosynthesis. At that point of time, so is the stream okay? Are you able to follow the stream? Okay, so in the winter time, when the green parts of the plant get covered up with your snow, and then the green parts cannot do photosynthesis. At that point of time, the food does not flow from your leaves to roots. Right, but then what happens? We have already learned in previous class, that is in class 9, that roots of different plants store a lot of food. So if the roots store a lot of food, then what will happen? Then the stored food in the root will move up into the plant body, and then from the root the food will the food will get distributed into the stem, the leaves, and different parts of the body. Okay, now so this will prove our point that the food transport is bidirectional, but in actuality food transport is multidirectional. Like whenever it's going from down bottom to up, that is actually the transportation of food in one direction. When it is going from top to bottom, that is in another direction. But when the food is supplying from one leaf to another leaf, that is in another direction. So we can say that the food transport is in this direction, it is in this direction, and it is in this direction. So food transport is basically multidirectional, but books write in your level that food transport is actually bidirectional. So you have to know that food transport or transport via phloem is bidirectional, and transport of water, that is through xylem, is unidirectional. So food transport is done by phloem. Right. So have you understood this concept of directionality of transport? Have you understood the concept of directionality of transport? Have you understood the concept of directionality? Okay, so moving on, now we will deal with first the water transport. Basically in your chapter, the chapter name is absorption by roots, the processes involved. So root absorbs water, it does not absorb food. Since we know that our plants that we are dealing with, the higher plants, are autotrophic, that means they can produce their own food, so they will not absorb food through their roots. That's very clear, right? Okay, and the only way the only thing that will get absorbed is water, and along with that water some minerals will get absorbed, right? So in this session we will be dealing with the water absorption or the water transport or the long distance transport of water. So if we break down the long distance transport of water in different steps, then how will it look? So it will be basically the transport of water molecules into the root hairs or the root, that is one step, that is from soil to root, and then from the root hairs through the different cells in the root tissue into the conduction tissue, that is the xylem for water. Okay, so from root to xylem, that is from the part of the root where it is getting absorbed, from that part it has to traverse different ways to get into the conduction tissue, which is present in the core region of the root, right? And after that, through the conduction tissue, it has go into the part where it is required. Okay, that is known as sink. So let me give you a quick idea of source and sink. Source is the part where something is abundant, right? And sink is the part where that substance is needed. So always the movement of any substance in any biological system is made from source to sink, right? So whenever photosynthesis is possible, at that point of time, what will happen? The source of food will be your green leaves, and the sink will be the other non-green parts of your body, and as well as the roots, right? But when the leaves will not be able to do photosynthesis, like in times of your night, in times of winter, when the leaves are covered with snow, then the roots have the stores of food, but the leaves are not able to make food, right? So at that point of time, what will happen? The sink will become the leaves and the different parts of the body, and the source will become, the root will become the source. Okay, understood the concept of source and sink? Nice. So with this we move on to the detailed discussion of all these three steps, that is from soil to root, root to xylem, and xylem to sink. Now water movement from in the root can take place through apoplastic pathway and through symplastic pathway, right? Now water transport via this apoplastic and symplastic pathway, I am coming to that, what are those things. Let us have a quick overview or very microscopic view into the root tissue. So this is a root tissue. If I magnify this root tissue, I get something like this. So let's have a quick revision of whatever we learned in class 9. So basically this is the cross section of the root tissue. So this layer is your epithelial layer, epithelium. After that, this long part is your cortex layer, and this part is your endodermis layer, Epithelium means epidermis. Basically this is not epithelium, actually in your books it is written as epidermis. So let me erase it out. This is epidermis. Dermis means skin, epi means on the top or outside. So this is the skin or covering layer on the out or top, that is epidermis. Then we have the cortex. Then we have your endodermis. Within the endodermis we have the vascular bundles. Now in vascular bundles, these green vascular bundles are your phloem, and these vascular bundles that you can see with orange boundaries, these are your xylems. Okay, right, this is a quick review of a root. Basically this is a dicot root. Now how you differentiate between a dicot root and monocot root? It's very simple, very simple. What's that? In dicot root you will have a proper taproot system, which is an ideal root, but in case which is an ideal root, and in case of monocots you will not have a taproot system. Instead of taproot system you will have adventitious roots, right? Understood? So basically this is the brief overview of the tissue structure of plant root, basically dicot root. Now study of tissue arrangement or tissue apposition, what is that? So can you tell me what is the science or study of tissue structure and function? Please answer quickly this question. So study of tissue structure and function, whether it is in animals or it is in plants or wherever. The study of tissue, what is it known as? Please answer. Okay, let me tell it for you. I hope you don't know. This field of biology which deals with the study of tissue structure and function is known as your histology. Okay, so this histo means tissue and logy means knowledge. Right, so knowledge of tissue is known as histology. Okay, the question is the study of tissue structure and function, the branch of biology that deals with the study of structure and function of different tissue, whether it is in plants or it is in animals. So I answered it for you, that is, it is histology. So histos means tissue and logy means knowledge. So knowledge of tissue is histology, right? So moving on, now what we have to learn is we have to focus on one single root hair cell. As you can see in the epidermis, we have some normal cells like this one, and we have certain root hair cells like this one. This has a long elongation like the root hair and this. Okay, so let's learn in details the structure of a root hair cell. Okay, so in root hair cell, if we focus, now root hair cell is like any other normal plant cell, but it has a few modifications into it. So modifications are what? Modifications are known as differentiations. Like in the beginning, all cells of any multicellular being look the same. All cells look the same, right? Like when a child is conceived, then the first cell that is formed is known as a zygote. Then when the zygote divides for a long period of time, all the cells are identical. But then the cells differentiate or become specialized. Like the cells of your eyes will not be the same as that of the cells of your heart, or the cells of your heart will not match with the cells of your liver. Similarly, in plants, the cells of the root hair cells will not match with the cells present in the phloem system or the cells of parenchyma. They will not match. So this difference that is acquired is known as differentiation, the process through which this difference or specialization of cells. So specialization of cells is through differentiation. Okay, so differentiation is the process through which cells acquire specialization. Like you are now studying in class 10, now you are not differentiated. Now after in class 11 you will get sorted out into science, humanities and commerce. So that will be a bit of differentiation or specialization. You're specializing in science subjects, or you will be specializing in arts, humanities subjects, right? After that, if you take up science, I will hope that you will take up science, since I am teaching you science. Suppose you go with biology, or you go with physics, or you go with chemistry, so that is further differentiation, right? So this is how one person becomes differentiated. Now, so the root hair cells are also differentiated. So like any other plant cell, they have a nucleus, they have cell wall, they have cell membrane, they have vacuole. But one part of the cell has got an evagination or protrusion. As you can see, this part is protruded out. Now this protrusion contains cell wall, cell membrane and part of the vacuole and some protoplasm in it, right? With this, elongation is known as your root hair. So what's the need of this root hair? See, the root hair is increasing the surface area, the surface through which the absorption will take place. So more the surface area, more is the absorption. Yeah, in ICSE, you people are already sorted out into science, humanities and commerce. Sorry, I mistook that. Yeah, so that means you people are already somewhat specialized to some extent or differentiated. Now this is the basic idea of your root hair or root hair cell. So basically, what's the need of having those root hairs? The root hairs just increase the cell surface area through which the absorption will take place. Because since you are a science student, you have read physics, and through physics you have learned, or in physics you have learned, that more the amount of surface area, more is the absorption, right? So let's move on. Now we come to the absorption of water. So before that, let's go back in this structure. So in this structure, let's see how water is absorbed. Water is absorbed by one process. Let's see. Now water is absorbed through the root hairs. Actually, over here the waters will enter, right? Now the water has two options to go through. Like suppose it's moving from Kolkata to Bombay. Now you have two options. You can go through highways, or you can go through small lanes and avenues of different cities and places or localities, right? So you have a highway approach, you can have a highway approach, and then you have what? You have your lanes and avenues approach, lanes approach, right? Now highway approach is that you go through, you get absorbed into the cell wall, and then you go through the cell walls of different adjacent cells, and through the cell walls you pass. See over here in the blue line, if you can see, if you're taking the cell wall approach, you are going through the cell wall, and then you enter somehow into the xylem. That is your highway approach. Why it is a highway approach? I'm coming to it. Now lanes approach is what? You get into the root hair, and getting into the root hair, you go through the root hair into the protoplasm, then you enter another cell, then you enter another cell, you enter the cells like localities. Suppose the cells are localities, you enter one locality, cross one locality, enter another, then you go and get into another, and finally you enter into the xylem. So that is your lanes approach. So let's have a more detailed discussion on that. Suppose this is my root hair cell. So whenever you feel any doubt, just ask me off then and there, so that I can answer it for you. All right. So this is the root hair cell, and let's consider this to be the cells of cortex. And this is your endodermis, right? Let this be the system. So in apoplastic system that we learned, apoplast is a process in which, or the highway approach, apoplast is your highway approach. That means you go through the cell wall, and in the cell wall you move through the cell wall, and through cell wall, right? And you get in. And why it is very fast? Because cell wall is hydrophilic, so water can get into the cell wall. At the same point of time, cell wall provides least resistance for water flow. So there's very low resistance. Yeah, obviously the highway approach is smoother than the lane approach. That's why it's a highway. So you will, if you learn driving, then you will see that it's very easier to learn drive cars on highway. So highways are better for long drives, right? For long distance transports. So it's faster, it's easier, it's smoother. That's why highways are selected for long distance transport. But from your school to your home, you will obviously not take a highway. Or from your local grocery shop to your home, you will not take a highway, because over there you have a short distance transport to do, right? But sometimes whenever you're going through the highway, you have to enter locality. So this highway approach ends at a point over here. Over here we have these structures, dark blue structures, which are lipid materials. I mean, not lipid materials, actually they are hydrophobic materials. What are these hydrophobic materials? These hydrophobic materials are known as Casparian strips. Casparian strips, right? Now Casparian strips, they do not allow the passage of water, and these Casparian strips are present in the cell wall of the endodermis cells. So cell walls are not also free of Casparian strips. So at that point of time, the water flow comes and halts. So over here you cannot cross through the Casparian strips. It's not like that you can cross through the Casparian strips, so it's not possible. So what you have to do, you have to leave your highway and get into the locality. That means you have to leave the cell wall and you have to get past the cell membrane and then into the cell, right? And then through the cell you have to pass, then through the cell you have to pass, then you have to pass through intercellular junctions. Those are plasmodesmata. These parts are known as plasmodesmata, right? So you have to pass through the plasmodesmata, and then finally you go to again cell wall, and from cell wall to you get into the xylem. This is my xylem. Okay, so I hope you have understood the pathway of apoplast. What is apoplast? Apoplast is the process or the highway approach that we learned. So apoplast is the movement of water through the cell wall, and it is a rapid mode of transport, but it gets obstructed or hindered at the level of Casparian strips. Then they have to get into the cell and then move on to the xylem. So this is the how the water will move from root hair into the xylem. So this is the second part of it. We learned the second part of the process, right? Now we move on to the concept of symplast. So for symplast, I will use another color for let's suppose blue. So what happens in symplast, the water, suppose this is a symplast, I am using blue. What will happen? The water will straight away enter into the cell, and from the cell they will move through this plasmodesmata into another cell, and then again into another cell, and then again into another cell, and then again they will have to cross your cell membrane, then cell wall, and then into the xylem. Right. Now this is a lane approach. Why it is a lane approach? Because you have to get into the cell wall, which is rapid, but then you have to cross this cell membrane over here, which is a very difficult task to do, because cell membranes are hydrophobic and they will not allow water to rapidly diffuse across the membrane. So that will take a long time, and after that, whenever you will go through the cell, in the cell it's not like the water is the only molecule that is moving. In a cell cytoplasm there are so many molecules that are moving around, because in your previous class, that is in your class 9, you have already learned that the cell cytoplasm is known as the reaction arena of the cell. That means there are so many reactions are going on simultaneously. There are so many molecules moving from here to there, right? So there are so many molecules, so there's high traffic. The thing that we see with our main roads and lane roads, there's high traffic in our locality roads. So in that, and that dodging that traffic is difficult. So you will not be able to get past by dodging those that traffic and get into the next cell quickly. So it will take a long time. So in every cell you will face some amount of traffic, you have to dodge the traffic and then you have to go. So it is a slower process, right? So this is our lane approach or the symplast pathway. So simplest is our lane approach. So these are the two methods through which we can go. Okay. Now we come to the difference of simplest and apoplast, a comparative analysis. So this will be asked in your examination. So have you understood till this? Have you understood till this? I hope you have understood till this. So now I move on to the difference between your water transport and the apoplastic pathway and symplastic pathway, right? So first of all, involvement of living part. Living part means whatever the cell membrane, that is plasma lemma, and within it whatever it is that is living. But outside plasma membrane, things are not considered as living. So cell wall is a part of your plasma, your cell, but it is not considered a living quantity or living entity. Actually, not quantity. Actually, it's entity. So involvement apoplast occurs through cell wall. So it does not involve a living part, but symplast occurs through cell cytoplasm and cell membrane. It involves cell cytoplasm and cell membrane, so it involves living part. Yes. So resistance to water movement, apoplast goes through your cell wall, which is a highway system, so there's less resistance. What happened? Monster Hunter, what happened? Should I repeat any part? So now the resistance to water movement, so apoplast pathway occurs via your what? Cell wall. So cell wall is our highway system. So since it's the highway system, what will happen? You will have fast movement or less resistance. So less resistance, why less resistance? As you all know, there will be less amount of traffic in the highway. So it's not like there's no resistance. It's not like there's no resistance, there's less amount of resistance, so it's less resistance. Okay, so I'm repeating from the very beginning of this apoplast and symplast pathway. So basically we don't consider the cell wall part as living. We consider the living parts as your plasma membrane and whatever is within the plasma membrane. So those are living parts. So involvement of a living so since apoplast occurs through cell wall, so it will not involve a living part because cell wall is not considered a living part, so it will not involve a living part. But symplast involves your plasma membrane as well as cytoplasm, so that will be considered as your that will be considered as the living part or involvement of living part. Now water resistance. Now apoplast occurs through your cell wall. Now cell wall is a highway approach or highway system. So in highway system you will have least amount of traffic or less traffic than the laneway. So there will be traffic will be less or the resistance will be less. But in case of symplast pathway, the resistance will be more. Now in lanes and your local roads you have high traffic. And again, from biological point of view, if you try to understand, then what you have to understand, it is that in symplast pathway you have to cross the plasma membrane and the cytoplasm. In plasma membrane you have to cross plasma membrane, which will take time. Along with that, in the cell membrane, in the cell you have your molecular traffic or cellular crowding. Now that cellular crowding will also hinder the movement of water, so there's resistance. Now high speed. So if you have less resistance, you will have high speed. So obviously apoplast will have high speed, and that is because of its high speed or fast progression. We call it the highway approach. Then we have the symplast pathway. Now symplast pathway does not have a high speed because its speed is first curved down at the level of crossing your plasma membrane, right? At the level of crossing your plasma membrane, the speed is curved down. And now we come to the involvement of the metabolic part of metabolic state of the route. Now, how metabolic state can hinder or promote the movement of certain substances. As I told you earlier in this session only, you have your the cell cytoplasm is the arena where your molecular activities or reactions take place, the reaction arena of the cell, right? Now, if this is the reaction arena, so most of the metabolism takes place in your cell cytoplasm. Okay, so if most of the metabolism takes place in your cell cytoplasm, then there will be more molecular crowding. So more molecular crowding means it will hinder the symplast pathway, or since symplast occurs through cytoplasm, it will involve the metabolic state, or the metabolic state of the root will have some role in it, but apoplast occurring through your cell wall, so it is not getting into the cytoplasm, so it will not involve your metabolic state, right? So this is an important question that is asked in your exam, in your final exam, right? So you have to follow this. You have to write a good answer out of this. Now, whenever you write your comparisons or differentiations in your exam, you should follow one thing very carefully. What is that? You have to write the difference, like over here we have written, but always remember to put a basis column. Most of your friends will not put a basis column, and this will give you an extra edge over others so that you score more marks. So always it is considered good to mention a basis column. That makes your work easier, right? So that's why you should always put a basis column. Now let's move on to the next part of it. So should we move on? Nice. So now water absorption, one part we have finished off with the water absorption. Now water absorption can be either active or it can be either passive. That is the water absorption that is getting done from from soil into the root and up, that can be an active process or it can be a passive process. So as we have learned in the previous class, that is your active process requires energy, and that is why it is known as active process, and your passive process does not require energy. That's why it is known as a passive process. Now this active process takes place by the accumulation of solute in the xylem. So this is the mechanism of action. How it is done? It is done by accumulation of solute into the xylem. Now how that mechanism plays out, we will learn in a moment. And in case of passive transport, what happens? It occurs through transpirational pull. Now details of transpiration we will be learning in the next chapter, that is the chapter 5, which is on transpiration. But we will learn basics of transpiration and idea of transpiration pull and how it is aiding in water absorption. Now most of the water absorption takes place by this passive process, that is 96%. But most of the very less amount of water is absorbed by the active process of 4%, right? Now the passive transport, why passive transport is the predominant factor over here? Because whenever if you get something for free, why will you pay money for that, right? So if you can do it passively without investing energy or without costing any energy, why will you buy it for some amount of energy, right? So since we can get it for free, we don't spend money. So basically one basic principle that you have to always keep in mind, your biological systems are very much conscious about their spendings, right? They always try to curb their budget, save their currency of energy. They don't spend energy without a purpose. They always save their energy, right? Now let's move on to the idea of active water absorption, that is known as the root pressure hypothesis, and the another part, that is a passive one, that is transpirational pull or transpiration pull. Now the idea of this transpiration pull was given by Dixon and Joly. So you have to keep in mind the name of these uncles, Dixon and you have Joly, quite jolly name. So Dixon and Joly proposed the idea of transpiration pull. right? Is it all right? Now we will go to the root pressure hypothesis. Now the same diagram that we used previously to represent the cross section of root, what we have to learn is that in root pressure hypothesis, what is done over here, the main application is of your water potential, the knowledge of water potential that we learned to apply in the previous session, right? Are you with me? Understood till this? Okay, take your time and clarify it. Okay, nice. So now we will apply the idea of water potential. So now we have to absorb water. So we have to cause movement of water from here to here, and from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here, and finally from here to here, right? Now how can I cause the movement of water? We have already seen that a place where water potential is high water potential to low water potential. Yeah, we will go to transpiration pool, but we are finishing off the root pressure part because root pressure part is easier one. Or you want to start with transpiration pool? Because I was thinking of ending it at the level of transpirational pool so that you get ease to start it off with your next chapter of transpiration. Oh, okay. Let's move on to the transpirational pool as you wish. So let's finish off transpirational pool first. Okay. So transpirational pool, what happens? Basically, transpirational pool is your passive form of water absorption. So basically, what is transpiration? So if I define transpiration in a very rough and very easy way, oversimplified way, so this is the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial part of the plant. So loss of water. So what is transpiration? Basically the easiest definition that you can have, that is loss of water in the form of vapor from aerial plant parts. These are the three important criteria of transpiration. Are you with me? Understanding it? Understood the idea of transpiration? So there has to be a loss of water from the plant in the form of vapor. It cannot be a loss in the form of water, and from the aerial part only, whatever is above the soil in case of terrestrial plants, right? Are you with me? Now this is the idea of transpiration. Now how transpiration will operate? Now, so there will be loss of water from aerial parts. So from aerial parts, this another loss of water. How water is lost? The aerial parts, the green parts of the plant will do photosynthesis, which will consume up water. So that is how the water will get lost. Then there will be transpiration, which is loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial part, and then there will be diffusion. How diffusion will take place? From the plant, the leaves will have water in the form of very tiny water droplets, molecules. Now those molecules will get diffused out into the air, and those molecules will float in the air, right? So that is a molecular idea. So from leaves to they will get into your air. So that is not transpiration, that is diffusion, because the water is in the form of water only, it is coming into the air, not vapor. Okay, so these are the three ways through which the leaf is losing water. If the leaves are losing water, what will happen? They will run short of water. So they will pull water from the veins. So now the veins will get short of water. Now the veins will pull the water from the stem. Now the stem will pull water from the roots. The roots will pull water from the root hairs, and the root hairs will pull water from the soil. So there's a chain of pulling that is going on, right? So there's a chain of pull. Somebody is pulling water column, and then another person is pulling the water column, then the third person is pulling the water column, and that is how the water is going up. Okay. Now the transpirational pull concept involves three very important ideas. The first idea is adhesion, second is the cohesion. So what is adhesion? Adhesion is the force between the wall of the vessel or the xylem through which the water is getting transported and the water molecule just in contact with it. So the force over here operating, this force is the adhesion force. Okay. Now the cohesion force is what? The cohesion force is the force between the two water molecules. So since you have learned about gravitation, you can tell that whatever any object in this universe attract each other. So water molecules attract each other. Okay, nice. Not a problem, not a problem. We will be doing that. So now over here, now additional forces are what? Additional forces are the force between two dissimilar objects. Like over here you can see it's the force between one water molecule and the wall of the xylem, right? So adhesion is the force between two dissimilar objects, and cohesion is the force between two similar objects, right? So have you heard of the term colleague? So the colleague term starts with a co. So from co you can remember the idea colleague. So colleagues will be of same office, same people, right? So they will have greater bonding. Like it's like bonding with, suppose in your school you have a friend, and in another school you have another boy of class 10 or girl. Now your bonding with the student of class 10 of your school will be more strong than the bonding between your bonding with the other person from the other school, class 10 guy, right, or girl. Now similarly, the cohesion force, the force of cohesion Fc, is higher than the Fa, right? So as Fc is higher than Fa, so the water molecule as a whole, and there are so many other water molecules in below here, so these water molecules closely compact manner form a water column. Now this water column moves up very swiftly because adhesion force is less than cohesion force. So water moves as a strong water column. So this is the role of adhesion force and cohesion force. I hope you have understood the concept of adhesion force and cohesion force. Have you? So now since we have understood the idea of adhesion forces and cohesion forces, now we will move on to the third idea that is required for transpirational pull. That is your water transport via surface tension. So surface tension is the third component required for transpirational pull. So whenever water molecules are or any other molecule, liquid molecules are close enough, they face a tension or they face a inward pull. What is that inward pull? Suppose the molecules which are present in the depth, they are getting pulled by their fellow members from all direction, right? But those who are at the surface, they just get pulled down by their fellow guys. This is the cohesion force that is applying. Now this cohesion force is pulling them down. So as the cohesion force is pulling them down, they are giving rise to surface tension. Now this surface tension is what? They are forming the surface as a very elastic membranous structure. Now I will not get into the details of surface tension as you are going to study about surface tension in your physics classes. Now surface tension gives rise to one important idea or result I will take up from physics, that is surface tension gives rise to capillarity. Capillarity. Okay. Now capillarity helps in movement of water through narrow channels. So this capillarity will aid the movement of water up. This is one part of the transpiration pull, right? The capillarity will pull the water as a column upward. So first we learned about adhesion forces and cohesion forces. Now adhesion forces are weaker than cohesion forces. So adhesion forces will allow the water column to slip away in the xylem vessel. Now the cohesion forces will give rise to surface tension. Surface tension will give rise to capillarity. Capillarity will allow it to get pulled up. Right? Understood till this point? And the important part is that we haven't used a single ATP molecule in all this. So this is a passive process. As I told you earlier, this is a passive process. Now one thing, let's get back over here. What we have to see? We have to see over here that as water is getting lost in the form of photosynthesis, as transpiration and diffusion, what is happening in the leaves? The water potential is decreasing. Yes or no? Water is the chief solvent over here. As water is getting lost in the leaves, so the water potential is decreasing. Now from here, suppose this is your point A and this is your point B. So water potential at A is more than water potential at B. So the flow of water will be from A to B. So as water flows away from A to B, so the water potential of A will decrease further. So the water potential of A will then fall down and it will become lesser than the water potential at C. Right? Understood this concept? Now water potential from C, water potential of C will get higher than that of the water potential at A. So the water will move from C to A, and this way the water will move up. Basically this is the water is always moved by manipulating the water potential. And now how you manipulate the water potential depends on the way by which you are doing. So this was a passive way of manipulating the water potential. So transpiration will give rise to low water potential in the leaves, and that low water potential will cause a water potential pull of water, and along with that it will be aided by the capillary action, and which will be put to action by your surface tension, and surface tension will only be possible due to cohesion forces, and the adhesion force will allow the water column to slip up. So have you understood the concept of water potential, the concept of cohesion, and the concept of adhesion, along with the concept of surface tension in transpirational pool? Right? Now as you can see that we have not used a single molecule of ATP over here, not a single molecule of ATP. Okay, this ATP that you are seeing over here, this is for cellular respiration, so this is not a part of today's discussion. Right? Now we move back to our idea of your root pressure. So root pressure,